Hi, scholars. I'm Dr. Brenda G. Harris, and I'm going to talk with you a little bit today about the themes in our syllabus quiz. This is for fall semester 2022, EDUC 2400, School, Society, and Diversity. Last week was our first week of the semester, and it was a bumpy one, but some of it was definitely due to our e-textbook and getting used to our Pearson textbook. For some reason, it was harder this semester than it was last semester, which was my first semester using it. But together, I feel like we worked together and were patient with each other and got through that. And I also really, really appreciate your patience with me as far as working through issues where as the announcements from last semester were posted on your course for this semester. So thank you for your patience with all of that confusion. And I know on your side of things, it can be pretty messy too. I've been in higher ed a long time now, more than 20 years. It's getting closer to 30 years. And every semester at the beginning is kind of chaotic, and then it settles down and people fall into their routines and get to know what's going to happen, what's expected. It seems less chaotic. Unfortunately, it's also a difficult time in the sense that many people start, and within the first maybe 10 days of the semester, we lose a lot of people too. They drop out for whatever reason. The thing to think about is that there's a time and a season for everything. And I've been in situations where I was so frustrated about enrolling for courses myself as an undergraduate, and nothing seemed to be going right. I couldn't get into the classes. I had problem after problem, and I ended up having to sit out a semester. And I had to make peace with that and just say, sometimes there's a time and a season for everything, and you can't do everything. You have to prioritize. There's only 24 hours in a day, and some of that you really do need to sleep. I know when I was younger, I used to think that I could live with very little sleep. That does catch up with you, and it's also not the smartest thing I've ever done. It shows in your body, it shows in your thinking, in your emotions. So, really taking time to focus, rest, prioritize, those kind of things. So we took our syllabus quiz, and you had to get 100% to be able to open up module 2. So some of you had to go back in and redo some, and I thank you that you had the patience to go ahead and the perseverance to go ahead and go back in. That can be very frustrating. I know. I've had to do that many times as well, and especially when I was revising my dissertation and it seemed like I would never get finished revising. I understand how frustrating that can be. So I thank you for that, and I thank you for your commitment to your education and your quality of your education. We leave no scholar behind. You have to work very hard to be left behind, and your commitment to your own education is very important. Okay, so there were some themes. As you know, the syllabus quiz had 3 questions that I had to answer, or I had to grade. You had to answer in a short answer format, like essay format, and then I had to go in and grade them. So there were 9 points that were graded by the computer, and then the other remaining points were what I graded. So it was about a flipped classroom, about what does it mean to be prepared in the SUU teacher education department, and then what are your maybe what are some of your points of excitement and motivation for the course? What are you excited about, and then what are you concerned about? And you know, not surprisingly, most of us were very, very excited about learning new things that will support promoting educational equity. And that is very encouraging and exciting to me, because that's certainly what was driving me when I became a teacher and I was looking for answers and went to graduate school. I did my first master's degree and then my doctorate and then a second master's degree, looking for just those answers. What can be done to support all learners so that all learners will experience educational equity and quality teaching and learning. Okay, so I'm going to talk now a little bit about some of the themes that were in some of our concerns across our class, in our group. So the concerns that came out in the syllabus quiz seem to be in two main categories. The first category was about concerns about the content. And I broke that down into different groupings as well. And then the second category was more of a procedural concern about workload and how to successfully complete the course. So it was almost like I was coding for a research study what your answers were. And so as I would read your answers, I would start laundry sorting them. What does this answer, is this like this student's answer, or is it like this student's answer? And so I started to have piles of the ways that each of you answered what your concerns were. So I thought, we'll go ahead and address some of those concerns because they were very important and very legitimate concerns. So let's go with the second category first, because it's the shorter one and it's a little bit more general, a little bit quicker to address. And it is an important one. It is the concern about the procedural. A lot of people were concerned about, am I going to be able to handle this course? It is a heavy course. In fact, I thought it was so clever how one student called it a beefy course. I loved that. I don't know if you're old enough to remember back when there was a commercial which would play all the time which said, "Where's the beef?" And so that was a good way to put it. Yes, this is a 3-hour course and you will get your tuition's worth. This is the only diversity course that you have in your program, and therefore we have a lot to pack into it. And our schools in the United States, our public schools, which is what we're focused on in this teacher education department, our public schools are increasingly diverse. They're increasingly not white. And our teacher population is staying as very, very white. We're like 89% white and mostly women, primary English speaking. So I'm kind of a prototype of, if you will, a kind of a representative sample of what our teachers' population looks like. And we have a small population of teachers of color, but we are losing them. And so the incoming groups of teachers from minoritized backgrounds stays small, and in some cases is shrinking. And then so we have a very white female teaching population, and our student population in K-12 settings is very diverse. And historically, that has meant a collision, and it has resulted in educational inequities, not because anybody is bad, but because people don't know how to cross those bridges. So in a few short weeks, I'm supposed to realize a little miracle and give you everything that you need. And I'm going to do my best to do that. So it is a beefy course. It is. You will need to work at least 9 hours a week on this course. It will not be okay for you to put this course behind other courses if you get to it. Last minute things will not work to finish this course. One thing that you should be very clear about is at the end of this semester, I will fill out a dispositions report on you based on your performance in the class. And so if you know that heads up, I know you're going to be the best person you know how to be anyway, but if you have kind of an intentional awareness that you're going to be evaluated on your disposition, then you can be prepared for that and think about that as you interact. Because like any other journey, this journey is going to have its high points and its low points, especially because it's a great deal of content in a short amount of time. Even though a 15-week course doesn't seem short, it will be. You won't believe it, and before you know it, we'll be heading toward our winter holiday break. Okay? So keep that in mind. This is for preparing for that dispositions report, which all students must have submitted for their EDUC 2400 before they can proceed in their program. So 2400 is required, and it is a course that has a required dispositions check, a report that I submit on you. Okay, so these concerns about this beefy class, how to maintain a work-life rest balance, that is so critical. I can share with you some of the things that I do. I put some strategies in the syllabus, so review the syllabus. Those are all research-based strategies that I included in the syllabus. For myself, what I do is I understand that where my commitments are is where my time is going to go. And so I do tend to give short shift to things that I'm not committed to, or I may be half-heartedly committed to. So this course, you have to be very intentional about saying, is this the time where I have the mental and physical and awareness to be able to really prioritize this class? I have to be very disciplined. If not, that's okay. You know, you could possibly think about it in another semester, especially if you're in an online course. Online courses are not what people often think. They often think they're going to be the easier course because they don't have to get up and go to the campus and meet in a face-to-face class setting for a certain amount of time. No, online asynchronous courses are often very, very difficult and more work because essentially you're taking the owner's manual as a student and you're teaching yourself. And so it is hard. If you know it's hard, just understand that, be intentional about that, bring that awareness to it. So you know that this is going to be a lot of work. Prepare mentally and physically. Prepare your life for it. What I also do is I do make sacrifices. I don't love getting up at 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning, but I'm a morning person, and so I will get up earlier. I have my routines in the morning where I will get up and work for a couple hours, and then so maybe I'll work 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and then I'll take my dog for his walk. And since he's only 5 months old, he can't go too far with me. And so then I bring him home and I go for my own walk. I like to walk up the different trails that are around our house. And so I will spend about an hour hiking, just walking in the early morning, watch the sun come up. And that's very peaceful and restful to my mind, as well as gives me exercise, which helps me to be able to focus when I get back. Then I do chunk my day. So I set goals for myself at the beginning of the day and the week, what must be completed. I prioritize, and then I chunk my time. And I work very intensely when I'm focused on doing things for our class. For example, I don't answer email, I don't check social media, I don't answer phone calls, anything, until I am finished with that chunk of time that I had set aside for your class. And so then I put it down, and I make sure I'm walking around, and I'm doing other chores and other things, and I try not to think about that, to give my mind a rest. Now, something you may not know is that sometimes if you're thinking about something very different than something that you had a question about in another very different area in your mind or life, sometimes those two may give you insight. You may think, well, those are very disconnected, but sometimes very different things will give your mind a little rest to be able to percolate, and you will be able to come up with some good insights. Another thing is that writing is thinking. So sometimes I will just get frustrated. I'll pull out a new document on my computer because my handwriting is so terrible and I can't write by hand very well. So I will just start typing, and sometimes my paper starts out really kind of angry, where I'll be like, I can't understand this, I can't think about this, I feel frustrated, I feel angry. And so I'm just like free writing and just kind of venting emotions. And then as I get into it, I usually start trying to understand and put the words on the paper, which forces me to think deeply. And therefore, that kind of writing as thinking and analysis sometimes yields really good results for me. So that may help you as well. So I'm very intentional about how I balance my life and my time. And when I'm resting, I'm resting. I'm not thinking in the back of my mind, oh, I have 50 syllabi to grade yet. I just put it down and leave it alone. Like my daughters are coming to visit tomorrow, and I will put things down and spend time with them. So I try to be fully present when I am there. And then I also do make sacrifices, like I get up early. Sometimes I feel like watching my Netflix, but I don't, because I have to be very disciplined to get these things done. And so I follow deadlines being my friends. And sometimes I have to push them back, but I try very hard not to. So that, hopefully that will help you. Just remember, there is a time and a place for things. Also remember that life stays busy. I'm a different kind of busy than I was when I was in graduate school and I had 6 children living at home. I'm a different kind of busy than when my children were in high school. But I have never stopped being busy. I am always busy. And I know you are too. So that's what I would like you to think about, is that life is always busy. So now may not be the time, and that's okay. But think about it and think, well, is it going to be less busy later on in my life? Probably not. So just think about, could you prioritize something When my children were little, I used to get on myself and kind of be very harsh with myself that I didn't do things that my own mother did for me. My own mother would make chocolate Easter eggs, and she would put our names on them, and she would do all of this by hand. And I really could not do that for my children. And eventually someone told me not to keep beating myself up for that, because I was going through a doctoral program at the time, and my mother did not. She did do other things, but she did not go through a doctoral program. So I had to let that go, that I wasn't going to be everything to everybody. And so, think about that too as you try to balance your life and work. And remember that your education is an investment in yourself and your family and your future and those that will interact with you, your students, your colleagues, your neighbors. As you learn, you are investing in yourself. So it's not time wasted doing homework and engage in the course. It is an investment in you, and it is your education. So it's okay to spend time on it, and you should not, shortchange yourself for that. Okay? So let's talk about now the second big category. This was about a lot of worries and concerns about being vulnerable, which is a very, very real and human and significant concern, because as human beings, even from the time we're fairly small, we don't like to be seen as incompetent. And so we will do all kinds of face-saving strategies that can even be counterproductive to us to save face and not look incompetent. We don't like our egos to be bruised. We don't like to have our feelings hurt. And we certainly don't like to be seen as incompetent. And here we are in a course that clearly says school, society, and diversity, and we already know that the teaching force is overwhelmingly white and that the student population is overwhelmingly not. Okay? And usually if you are in college or have a degree of some type, you have been able to make some sort of an economic class jump. Like for me, I grew up very poor. I grew up in a very low socioeconomic status, but then I graduated from college and I was able to make my way into a more middle class. And then when I married someone who was also middle class and had an income that was able to support us much more than a teacher, or even a teacher educator could, then that made my economic status a little different. And so we know that a lot of the students in public schools, oftentimes the schools that get the new teachers and the less experienced and the less competent teachers, are the ones that are economically poor and the economic refugees. And so right there you see another clash. So when we talk about teachers and teachers' role with perpetuating patterns of educational inequity, sometimes the hair at the back of our neck goes up and we get very concerned because we are thinking somebody's going to blame us. Somebody's going to call us a bad person, and we don't want to be bad people. And we know that we're good people, and we don't like to be blamed for things, particularly if we feel that we did not do them. So right away, we've got our defenses up in a course called School, Society, and Diversity. So these are very real concerns, and these kind of concerns and the emotions that go with them are typically negative. And so negative emotions will stand as a barrier for learning. And so learning should be joyous. It doesn't mean that it's pain-free, but you should have some sense of joy and accomplishment and some feeling of safety to make mistakes, because making mistakes is part of learning. We don't learn without making mistakes. And learning is inherently about stretching, pushing, growing, coming out of your comfort zone. Okay? So I've set you up already to be hurt. And this is not what I enjoy doing, because being a helicopter professor, I'm very sensitive to people's emotions around me. And being a mother, a teacher, a grandmother, I tend to have an emotional barometer and check how people are doing. And my instinct is to comfort them when they are feeling uncomfortable and unsafe and hurt. So we have a task ahead of us. So let's look at, what kinds of vulnerability people in our class were concerned about. First of all, people were concerned about their existing belief systems being challenged. Okay? Whenever we hear things about diversity and different perspectives, we kind of know, if you're like me and I'm very representative of the U.S. white mainstream. I'm middle class, I'm a primary English speaker, I'm white, I was born in the U.S. The only thing that I don't have to be top of the food chain is I'm not a man. I don't identify as a man. So, but I fit in perfectly with the U.S. white mainstream. So I can expect to have anything with diversity to be something that isn't in my background or my belief systems. So we worry about that as a class. We're worried specifically about being offended, and this is important, offending others. We're worried about that. We are, and this speaks a lot to the concern and caring and empathetic nature of our class. A lot of people are concerned about offending others. And that is very much of an I-thou relationship, where you are concerned about my humanity and offending me and hurting me. So thank you for that. That's a good place to start. And of course, we're worried about our own sense of being offended. We're worried about being offended in class, our own class here in this journey of 2400, and in our own classrooms in schools when we are teachers in our own classroom. We're going to be working with parents who may question things that we do and say, with principals, with colleagues, but especially with parents. Sometimes parents can come at you because you've got their little precious, and they love their little precious, understandably, beyond what words can express. And so if they feel that you are any kind of a threat to their little precious, they're going to come at you. Okay, and you know that because you have loving relationships with others as well, and may get concerned when you feel that someone you love is vulnerable and being attacked as well. So parents and guardians are in that role as well. So here's what I have to say about being concerned about being offended and offending others. Control what you can control, okay? As far as being offended, try to have a thick skin and count in your head, if that helps. Be patient. Be patient. Sometimes when other people are hurtful to us, they are experiencing hurt and they're projecting their hurt onto you. and you are being their little whipping person. Okay, and so it's not really about you. And if you take that moment and instead of responding back, you hold the line, are patient, and just wait a while, it may de-escalate a little bit. And sometimes a good way to de-escalate is to say something to affirm their hurt. Say, I understand that you are very concerned about your child in my class. So that they know that you hear them. And you know, I might be offended by a student in my class. A student might say, I really just cannot be around people with that kind of a sexuality. They just are offensive to me, and I feel like they're evil. And I might take that very personal, and it might be very hurtful, but I'm going to hold it. I'm not going to respond. I'm going to give it some time. And I might choose my battle. I might just leave it there. Just because somebody else says it doesn't mean it's true. I may ask a question. Asking a question is a very non-confrontational way to respond. Why do you feel that way? What makes you think that? Why would you think that? And if you say it in a way that your body language isn't aggressive and trying to hurt them, then, and you really do wonder, it will also de-escalate it. So, if someone offends you, you have to think about, I'm the professional. Just because someone says that's true doesn't necessarily mean it is. And maybe there's some misunderstanding. Maybe the other person is in a lot of pain and they're projecting it and they're just lashing out. So there's a lot of reasons for that, but you cannot begin to know what it is if you quickly respond back. That usually escalates it. So fear of being offended, try to just be open. Think about, I'm the professional here. Let me give it a few minutes. Let's just see where this goes. If you feel the need to respond, maybe ask a question. Okay? A fear of offending others. Now, this is very caring. At the same time, you don't want to shut down your own voice just because you're like, well, I don't want to hurt their feelings. I don't want to say something that might offend them. So then if I do that and I say, well, I don't want to hurt their feelings, I'm not intentionally trying to hurt your feelings, but maybe something comes out and I didn't intend it, and regardless, it still hurts you, right? Maybe I said something like, I did do this and I really had to make amends for it. It just popped out of my mouth. Sometimes I say stupid things without thinking. And I had just moved to Alabama, and there's a lot of stereotypes about Alabama, and I made some negative comment about that it wouldn't matter here in Alabama. And of course, the people who were born in Alabama were like, excuse me, very offended, because they're quite aware that the rest of the country has such a negative view of them. And when I had moved from graduate school in Salt Lake City to Alabama, people were like, why would you go there? And because they had such a negative view. So people there were aware of that, and I expressed that. Whether it was intentional or not, and it wasn't intentional to be hurtful, I just said it without thinking. And so I definitely had to apologize, and I definitely had to make a greater effort to be attentive to what I was saying and be sensitive to my community around me. So I did change my behavior in that. There's other things where if I don't say something, then the peace is coming at my expense. And Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. talked about that. Just because you have no conflict doesn't mean you actually have true peace. I might be holding my tongue, but this is not peace, because it's not an I-thou relationship in either between you and I or with the group. I might just be taking a hit for the team by holding it back. And for example, there's quite a bit published about what was happening in Salt Lake City and around the country when here in Utah, when the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints changed the priesthood ban on blacks. And a lot of people were upset about that, and there were all kinds of jokes and so on and sayings. And regardless of who was in the audience, this would be shared. And so sometimes if you were a member of the targeted group and you were supposed to hold your peace and just be okay with those jokes, it was coming at your expense. And so that's a different kind of a being silenced. And in our journey in 2400, we don't want to do that kind of silence. If you feel like what you're saying is something that isn't about like how I was demeaning the people around me, and that was so unnecessary, I needed to apologize. If it's something that you just don't know about and you're asking, and then ask it, because it may offend people, but how else are you going to learn? For example, one time when I was teaching in Alabama, the whole state is like 22% black, and so that's very much higher. Utah's only 0.5%, so you have a lot of black people in the state. So our schools, we had many more black students than we do at SUU. And in my classroom, I still had a lot of white people as well. But I had maybe 2/3 white, about 1/3 black. And then maybe, maybe some people that were representing other groups. But mostly black and white. And so when I had a student, a white student, who said, I don't think about being white. I'm me. And I didn't really know that I was white. Well, one of my black students popped up and said, well, how in the heck wouldn't you know you're white? You don't look in the mirror every day? And that was handled very poorly, and it was hurtful to the white student, because she didn't choose to be born in a white body. She didn't choose to know or not know how racial dynamics work in this country. She was learning. And so because she was a member of the mainstream, she didn't know as much, because she didn't have to know as much about that kind of racial dynamics as someone who walks around in a body that doesn't pass as white. And so that was something where if she had held that in, how else was she going to learn? How else was she going to know? The other student needed to not treat her in an I, it, but with I, thou. Be patient with her, understanding. She had no intention of hurting anyone, and her silence would have hurt her as well. How would she know? So there's a time when we have to think about and analyze what it is that we're worried about being offensive about. Okay, now the next one is really very similar. Fear of being silenced and silencing others. Yeah, if you're offending people, being offensive, you probably are silencing them. And so, again, control what you can control. I know what's true about me. So I am often accused of being a maniac. I've heard that. I've seen that written on course evaluations. I've seen people say that I hate other white people, things like that. And that's not true. But I can't control what they think about me. So I control what I can control. Just because they think it, I don't have any control over what's in their heads. I just leave that alone. I don't let it upset me. I don't let it bother me. I don't take my time and energy on that because I can't control that. I can control me and my sphere of influence, but I cannot control other people. So I leave that alone. And in trying to control me, I try to ensure, am I treating people in an I thou? Am I being patient with them? Am I being kind with them? Am I being authentic and trustworthy with them? So that people know when you're kind of faking it, if you will. They know whether you're actually listening. They know if you're actually fully present to them. And if you're not, you're probably silencing them if you're pretending that you care. Then you've slipped into an I it. Okay. Concerns about being exposed to different ideas and perspectives. I know that this is a very important concern for many people because they are worried about having other people's ideas forced upon them. I hope you will let me know if you ever feel that, because as a thinking adult, you are in charge of your perspectives and your beliefs. You are only required to engage ideas. You don't have to accept them. So, as I've mentioned, I know a great deal about communism. That doesn't mean that I accept it. I can speak intelligently on it. I can make presentations on it. I'm very knowledgeable about it, but doesn't necessarily mean I believe it. So, think about that. Also think about learning is about stretching, being exposed to new ideas. You have to be willing to take a risk. You're not going to grow unless you take risks and you become uncomfortable. Learning and growing necessarily mean that there's some growing pains, okay? And I want to do all that I can do to support you while you're growing. And I need to be growing too. If I'm not learning from you, you're probably not learning from me either. So it's a little tougher if we're in the asynchronous course, but if we're in the person to person, we have a little bit of an advantage because we can see each other and feel each other's vibe amongst all of our community members. But still, it's not like we can leave life at the door, and we only have a short time together, and there's a lot of us. So regardless of if you're in face-to-face or in online, we're going to have to be able to be open to taking a risk and learning from and with each other. And I know that's much riskier for you as the student because I give you a grade. You do write my course evaluation, but that doesn't carry the same weight as a grade that goes on your transcript. So you are definitely the more vulnerable one, just like your own students will be the more vulnerable ones. So I do what I can as your teacher to use humor to kind of scaffold the content that we're going to work with. I try to give you feedback, different materials to help you get the content from different perspectives, but you do have to put your work into it as well. I cannot learn it for you. I can learn with you, but I cannot learn for you. So if we're patient and caring and supportive of each other, and we're willing to allow people to make mistakes, then we can all be vulnerable together, and we can be okay when one of us or some of us fall and make mistakes, which we will. That's a part of learning. When we make mistakes, those are like diagnostic moments. What happened? Where are we going? Why did it happen? What can we do next? And so mistakes are actually very helpful, and we can correct and redirect and so on. But you have to know that you are okay whether you make a mistake or not. It is okay to say the wrong thing. It's okay. For example, I've had students in the past who will say the word colored, okay, and that is not an appropriate word, but they didn't know it. Okay, well, if you don't know it, and there's many historical reasons about why you wouldn't know that. So, things like that happen, and you need to know that you are safe enough to be able to make a mistake like that and have it corrected. One of the things that I did in graduate school, and I learned from it, we were learning about various philosophers, including Max Weber. And you may have heard of Max Weber because he was a German philosopher who lived around the time of Karl Marx. Very famous, very important in social psychology, and particularly in sociologists. He's a sociologist. So I did not know that his last name, which is spelled like Weber, was actually Weber. I didn't know that's how you pronounce it. So when I was corrected by my teacher, I felt a little silly. I felt a little vulnerable. I felt a little exposed. But I learned, and it was like, well, now I know. It kind of marked me as a beginner. I didn't know. But that's okay. Everybody starts somewhere. You don't start out as an expert driver, right? You learn, you grow. You don't start out as an expert anything. And in education, you're never really fully expert, whereas you've learned everything. Our field is so beautiful and so immense and so vast that it would take lifetimes to learn all of this stuff, because human beings are way too complex. Okay, so what I want to leave with you is that it is okay to make mistakes. That is what we build on and grow from. And no matter what, you as a human being, you are always, already, and now enough. So you have nothing to prove, nothing that says that you aren't a fully capable, competent human being. And we're growing together, and it's okay to feel vulnerable. And we are going to be patient with each other and allow each other room to make mistakes, and excuse and comfort each other when we do make mistakes. Maybe we're frustrated, it's too much work, we don't understand. And you know that students often learn more from each other than they do from their professor. So you are going to play a key role with each other as well, with supporting and helping and being there for each other as we move forward. Okay? Thank you for listening.